Okay, today we're going to be doing the road trip shawl. This is the knit version, and I'm going to be showing you how to do each part of it. And we're going to be looking at how to do the butterfly, the little pit stops, the crop rows, and the flowers, and the bind off. So let's get started. I've already gotten myself to the part where I'm going to be doing the butterfly stitch. And so this is actually a little bit of lace knitting, but don't worry, that just means that you're going to make holes on purpose. So don't fret if you have not done very much lace before. This one's very easy. And we're going to be doing the very first butterfly, and it actually starts at the end, the bottom of a butterfly. And so I'm going to be doing a slip knit. So you slip 2 stitches as if you're going to knit them, but you just take them off. So slip 2 stitches, and then you put your needle through the front of them and knit them together. So slip, knit, yarn over, bring your yarn to the front, knit 1, yarn over, knit 2 together. Okay, so that gives us the little bottom eyelets. And on the wrong side row, we are going to purl. And when you're purling a yarn over, you want to purl from the front leg. If you purl it from the back leg, you're going to end up closing it and making it weird. So you want those holes to stay open. Okay, so now let's do the middle part, and you can see we've got 2 holes there, right? All on purpose. Okay, so then we're going to do the next part, which is another slip, put it through the front, knit them together, yarn over again, knit 1, yarn over, and knit 2 together. And doing a different decrease on either side of that gives your stitches different leaning. And so one of them goes one way, one of them goes the other. It just makes it look prettier and kind of, you know, circles around the butterfly. Okay, so now we're on our wrong side, and we're going to purling those yarn overs, keeping them open. And I'm using just a kind of variegated yarn. In the pattern, you would be using a solid colored yarn, probably a light color solid or a tonal, something that's really going to show off your work. And because sometimes variegated and speckled, the stitches, eyelets and things like that, and textures get lost in all the color and everything that's going on. So you'll want to choose something very light colored. And this one is not too bad because it's actually like a light color variegated. So it kind of works. But you want to choose lighter colors for when you're doing lace and texture, because they show it off the best, and you're doing the work for, so you want it to show. All right, knit front and back, knit 2. We're going to do a slip, knit, yarn over. we're actually going to knit 3 here in the middle because we're going to give the butterfly some elongated wings. Yarn over and knit 2 together, and that puts you right at your stitch marker. Okay, and then on our wrong side again. Purling those yarn overs. And you have your first butterfly. So it should look like this, with the bottom, the middle, and then the elongated wings off to the side. Okay, so I've given myself a couple of rows here just to give myself some room, but what I want to show you is the pit stop row. So starting at the 20th row, when you have about 20 stitches on your needle, you're going to start doing pit stops. And that's going to be these little kind of picot, but different along the edge. And you work them at the end of your rows, of those rows, and they'll be marked in the pattern for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to the end of our row. And whatever you're doing in that certain row, you follow that pattern. And then you're going to get to your very last stitch, but you're not going to knit it. You're going to make one front 3 times. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to put our needle into the horizontal bar in between the stitches. So we're not going to go into the stitch, and we're actually going to use our left hand needle, and we're going to bring this horizontal bar here up from the front. And we're going to knit into the back of it and drop. So that's once. That same horizontal bar, we're going to do it again. From the front, knit into the back of it. And then you're going to do it one more time. You want to keep your tension nice and loose. It should not be a fight to get into that stitch. You want to open that up from the front, knit into the back, pull it through. So this is what it should look like. You're going to have a little bit of an eyelet there. That's fine on purpose. And you're going to have increased 3 stitches. Then you knit that last stitch. On the row back, coming back, you're going to bind off 3 stitches. So we're going to do just like a normal bind off. Pass that one over. Knit the next one, pass it over. And one more time. Knit it, pass it over. And now you're back down to having just 3 stitches in front of that stitch marker. Okay? So let me finish this row, and we're going to see how that little pit stop ended up looking. Okay, and there you see we have this little roundabout or pit stop looking stitch. Super cute. And you'll start doing those around when you've got 20 stitches on your needle, and then you will do that at the end of about 10 stitch increase. So about every 20 rows you're going to be doing one of these at the end. And so this is going to be the top of your shawl, and so these are going to end up being along the right side edge, the bottom edge of your shawl. And they look really cute. Okay, now I'm going to show you the left twist stitch. And this is going to give you this this crop rose is what they are reminiscent of and inspired by, but it gives a great raised texture to your shawl. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And of course, my little sample here is not at the place that you would be. You would have a much larger shawl. But what we would be doing is, when it tells you to left twist stitch, which would be LTS, you're going to knit into the back of the second stitch on your left hand needle. Okay, so you're going to look in the back, get that second stitch and knit it. And then you're going to come back to the front and knit the first stitch like normal. And then you're going to drop them both. Okay? And then you'll be purling 3 in between. Then make sure you put your yarn in the back again. Left twist stitch, so the back of the second stitch, pull it through, and then do the first stitch like normal. Pull that one through and both of them come off. And you see it pulls that second stitch behind there. Okay, then we're going to purl 3. Let's see if we've got, no, I've run out of room, so I'll show you that again. And on the wrong side rows, what you'll be doing is you'll see that there are bumps, right? So you'll see those 3 that you purled, they look like knits now, right? Because you're on the wrong side. So you're gonna actually be purling the ones that look like pearls and knitting the ones that look like knits. And of course the pattern will tell you knit 3, purl 2, but I want you to be able to also read it in case you get a little off and you're thinking, oh wait, what did I just do? So being able to read your knitting is very handy because you know what you did on the previous row. So seeing these, they look like knits, so I know I've purled them on the right side row, which gives me this. So I'm going to knit those 3. And this was a left twist stitch, which I'm going to purl those 2. Okay, and let me show you those again. So those left twist stitches are going to start moving down your knitting, okay? That diagonal line is going to keep shifting over and over by 1. So we're going to do, so we're going to do purl 3. Then we're going to do our left twist stitch into the back of the second stitch. Pull it through into the first stitch. Pull it through and drop both stitches. Okay, purl 3. Left twist stitch, make sure you move your yarn to the back, into the back of the second stitch, into the first stitch, and pull them both off. Purl 3. Okay, that brings us to the end there. So if you ever do get off in the pattern, you're thinking, oh boy, somehow and see there you can start seeing that this line is starting to go diagonal, right? And it's starting to move across, so it'll continue moving across that section. If you ever get off, a little bit, or you're not sure what you're doing, you could always just read your stitches and see where you're at. And just keep moving that diagonal line across that section. Okay, so that way you don't have to rip everything out. Just keep that line moving. Maybe the very edges might be a different stitch number or whatever. Just, you know, keep purling them, or, you know, doing what you need to do to keep that diagonal line moving across. Oh, these are knits. Okay. So let's do that one more time. And that way you can really see that diagonal line moving across. Okay, I'm just going to knit that one. I'm going to purl. Oh, well, no, knit this one. I'm going to purl 3. Left twist stitch to the back of the second stitch, into the first, pull them both off. Okay, and you're not losing any stitch count. You're making 2 stitches and you're dropping 2 stitches. So you're not increasing or decreasing. You're basically working them out of order. Into the back, pull it through, into the first stitch, pull them both off, and purl. And it should start looking like this. This is how you will know that you're doing it correctly. You've got the little diagonals showing up, and in between them is a background of purl stitches. Okay, I've given myself a little bit of room here, and I'm going to show you the flower stitch and how to make these little flowers. And in the middle of the flowers is a little raised center, and so I'm going to show you how we get there. So I'm going to get to where I'm going to make the little, again, it's just eyelets. Front, back, knit 2, knit 3. Okay, so we're going to knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, slip, slip, knit, knit 2, and then you're going to follow the pattern. Mine, of course, is just a sample, so I'm just going to move to the end here and get myself over to the wrong side, where we're going to purl. So doing those butterflies is going to be great practice for this section. You'll be a complete pro at doing those slip slip knits and knit 2 togethers and purling the yarn overs. So you will be very ready for this section. So the only difference here is going to be seen on this second row. And here's how I'm going to show you something new that you may or may not have done before. In the pattern, it's going to be called MC, or make center. So this is the little center of a flower. We couldn't find a technical name for it. So if you know what the center of a flower is called, let me know. All right, so we are going to knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, and then we're going to make the center. To make the center, we are going to knit into the front, back, front, and the back of that one stitch. So then you're going to have 4 stitches made in that one. Then you're going to take each stitch in turn that you've just increased and pass them back over that first stitch. So take the second one, the third one, and the fourth one and pass it over that first stitch. Then you can push it forward and you've got this little, kind of a tiny bobble, but it's different than normal bobbles because you don't turn it. So you've got just this little raised center. I'm gonna knit 1, yarn over, slip, slip, knit. Okay. So remember, you're going to knit into the front, back of that same stitch. And you'll increase by 3, but you will also immediately decrease those 3 by passing them back over. And this gives you a little tiny bobble or popcorn or whatever you want to call it. Okay. So then when we come backwards, sometimes your little center there is going to want to come to the back side. So you're going to want to make sure, and here we are at the yarn overs. Here's our center. Sometimes it'll come to the back. You can push it forward. And if you make this stitch nice and tight, push that little bobble forward. And that way it helps it keep it from sagging or coming to the back. Okay, so we'll get to the end of this row and then it'll show you the top of the flower, or the other petals of the flower really. So here's our right side. And when you're blocking this, so I wouldn't worry too much about the centers right away while you're making them, as long as you've got them nice and tightly. And then when you're blocking it and you've got it laid out flat on, you know, your surface and it's drying, what I do is I kind of pull them up and give them a little twist and kind of, you know, pooch them out, and that way they are raised. And I'm trying to show that on camera. I'm not sure if I'm capturing it very well, but that way you can always just kind of pick them up, twist it, and then it should stay pretty well as you're blocking. Okay, so let's finish off the flower. We're going to knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, slip, slip, knit. Okay, so those are the top petals. And I'm going to get to the end and do the purl on the back side. And that way we can see the completed flower. Now, if you absolutely hate doing those little popcorn centers, you can eliminate them from the pattern. You know, you can just do like a little purl bump, or you can just knit it and move on with your life if you super hate it. If you don't think it's worth it and you just want to be done, then, you know, it's yours. You do what you want. But you do have the information on how to make them in case you are making, because you know, you can use that stitch to make, you know, cute little design on a blanket, on a baby blanket or something, you know, have that little nub. So you know how to do it. It's yours. You decide. So there is our flower with the raised center. Kind of fun, gives it some texture. And our flower petals, 1, 2, off to the side and down here on the bottom. So it gives you like a little circle around that center. Okay, giving myself a little bit of room to show you the bind off. And this is what it's gonna look like. You're gonna get all these eyelets along the left side bottom edge of your shawl. So over here, this is the top. All your pit stops are going to be on this edge, and then we're going to bind off and have the same sort of picot pit stop on your bind off edge. So those will be the bottoms of your shawl. So what you'll do is you'll follow the pattern. Obviously, I don't have the same amount of stitches on my sample here, but when you get to a certain number, I think it's 10, like knit 10 and then make one front 3 times. So we're going to do that same stitch that we used for the little pit stops, but we're going to do it in the middle of a row. So you're going to find that horizontal bar in between the 2 stitches. You're going to go through the front, knit into the back of it once, same bar, pick it up, knit into it again, and one more time. Remember, keep your tension loose. You do not want a fight, and that's what it should look like there. And then you're going to keep going. You're going to probably knit 10 in the pattern. I'm just doing it kind of randomly, just to give myself. So then you're going to come to the next spot, identify that horizontal bar in between your stitches, pick it up from the front, knit into it, pick it up again, knit into the back, and one more time. There we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, then keep knitting. Okay, let's do another one here. Whoop. Make one front, knit into the back of it, make one front, knit to the back, make one from the front, knit to the back 3 times, keep going. Okay, let's do one more. Make one front, knit to the back of it, make one front, knit to the back, make one front, knit to the back. All right, and I'm just going to knit to the end, take my marker off here. Okay, so now we're going to do the final bind off. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit into the back, knit 2 together through the back loops. Okay, so we're not going to do a normal bind off like we do when we've got our little roundabout pit stops. We're going to knit 2 together through the back loops, right? And then this stitch, we're going to pass it back to our left hand needle. Okay, this is going to, and then you're going to do it again. Knit 2 together, do the back loop. Okay, pass that stitch back. Okay, this is going to be a very nice and stretchy bind off. This is, I love using this bind off for shawls, and every few stitches I usually give it a little tug, and you can see that it's nice and stretchy. Keeps your tension nice and even. You don't want your shawl to be all puckered at the end. You know, you've done all this work and it's this big, beautiful shawl, and then you bind off tightly and it's like, oh man, you've just kind of ruined the look of it. So this keeps it nice and even and stretchy. And you're just going to do that all the way down the line. Knit 2 together, pass that stitch back to the left hand. Knit 2 together through the back loop, pass that stitch to the left hand. Knit 2 together through the back loop, pass that stitch over to the left hand. Okay, give it a little tug. Make sure you're keeping your tension loose. Knit 2 together through the back loop, pass it back, knit 2 together through the back loop, pass it back, and we're going to get to the those make one fronts pretty soon here, and you'll be able to see they'll just pop up on their own. And when you are blocking, I do recommend a full wet block. Soak it for about 10 minutes in some cold water and maybe some wool wash. If you're using dark and light colors, then put a color catcher sheet. It's like a laundry detergent, or not a laundry detergent, it's a laundry product. And you can find it in the laundry aisle. And what it does is it catches any dye coming off like a dark yarn. So if you have like a dark red yarn, see there's our first little peacoat there that just kind of pops up on its own. And as long as you keep it nice and loose, as long as your bind off is nice and loose, those will show up so well. So throw a color catcher in if you've got darks and light colors, and that way it'll keep the color from bleeding over onto the lighter. But yeah, wet block it, then, you know, gently squeeze it, roll it up in a towel if you need to, and then when you lay it out, you're going to want to pin these little picots at your ends. You're going to want to pin these pit stops at the end, and that way it opens up really nice, and you know, you get to keep and see that shape that you've worked for. So yeah, I definitely recommend a full wet block, or you can use a handheld steamer if you've got one of those. Lay it out, steam it and pin it, steam and pin, steam and pin. So you won't get a full wash, you know, and sometimes when we've been handling a project like this, it's a very large project that probably takes a long time. So it's probably collected a bit of, you know, hand oils and bits and pieces here and there. But, you know, it's definitely recommended to give your hand knits a good soak when you're done. And that way they're fresh and clean, and they will last you through the season. It's also recommended to do that at the end of every season that you've been wearing them after the winter is over. Of course, in Texas, that's really quickly, so. Okay, knit 2 together through the back loops. And you can see, look, they're popping up, and they kind of do it on their own. And especially if you know, every few stitches you're tugging, you're getting a little bit of check to make sure that you're keeping it loose enough. If you are a super tight knitter, then I recommend going up a needle size for this part, and that way you are sure not to be too tight, and your shawl will still have all that beautiful drape and size that you worked for. Okay, so it's going to this is actually going to be a garter section in the pattern, so you don't need to worry about it curling up so much like this is doing for me, because I just have stockinette. But when you block it out, you'll want to pin these open, and you'll have a nice stretchy shawl on both ends, and everything is going to look beautiful. So I hope that you were able to do your butterfly, your pit stop, your crop rose, your flower with the little center, and your bind off picot edge. And you can find the pattern on my website of the Road Trip Shawl, Industrial Whimsy. I'm Esther Puente. And if you have any questions or any comments, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer you. And if there's any other pattern or anything else that you'd like to see on this YouTube channel, just let me know. Send me a message or leave a comment, and I'll see if I can do that for you. Thank you guys for watching and for doing the Road Trip Shawl. Don't forget to tag me on social media when you finish your shawl so I can see it and admire your awesome color choices.